This leak, considered one of the most significant in Google's history, has sparked widespread discussion and analysis within the SEO community. The biggest leak, 14,000 ranking factors, including the use of domain authority, click data, and Chrome data, Google Chrome data. So I'm going to read the 13 things that I've read about so far that have been found, and then how this leak actually came to be. It's in a long article from Rand Fishkin, who is like one of the grandfathers of SEO. That he founded Moz, which is SEO software that I love. And I love Rand Fishkin, and he wrote this article. So I'm going to share all this right now. It's crazy. Literally, this just happened. This just happened. And a lot of what I am seeing about the leak has validated my own theories that I have experienced myself, that I theorized myself, which Google denied, which other SEO professionals denied, because Google's own directions on how to do SEO didn't say any of this. But from my experiences and from my beliefs, it just made sense, and it's all been validated. All right. Okay. This is from HRIDOYREH. I can't pronounce this person's name. Hirudoy Remen on Twitter, on X, and he said, Google search algorithm leaked today. It outlines 2,596 modules with 14,014 ranking factors related to various Google services. Here's 13 things we found so far. 1. Domain authority. The documentation reveals a feature called site authority, indicating Google does measure site-wide authority. Everyone knew that. Domain authority, everyone knew that. This one, pretty surprising, clicks for rankings. Contrary to Google's public denials, systems like NavBoost use click data to influence rankings. That's something that I always believed, but there it is, validated. Number 3, everyone knew this. Documentation mentions host stage attribute used to sandbox new sites, contradicting Google's denial of a sandbox. However, recently I've been seeing a lot of new sites rank. They've been targeting less competitive keywords, but their velocity of backlinks has been better. So site age is important, but it can be overcome, and I've been seeing that myself. But a lot of SEOs knew that the age of a site had an influence within Google's algorithm. This one, pretty surprising. Number 4, despite denials, the documentation shows that Google Chrome data is used in the ranking algorithm. Number 5, Google's ranking system is a series of microservices rather than a single algorithm. I'm not surprised about that. Key systems include Trawler, which is crawling, Alexandria, which is indexing, Mustang, which is ranking, and SuperRoot, which is query processing. Number 6, these are re-ranking functions that adjust search engine results pages before they are presented to users, like NavBoost, Quality Boost, and Real-Time Boost. That's so cool. So those things readjust the search engine results pages before the users see them. Number 7, Panda is an update. Panda uses a scoring modifier based on user behavior and external links applied at many levels: domain, subdomain, subdirectory. That one's not too surprising. It just means different parts of a website will be treated differently. However, something like that should be taken with a grain of salt. It really depends on the website. Domain authority is still super, super important. Number 8, and this one I loved, Google explicitly stores author information, indicating the importance of authorship in ranking. So if an author has a good reputation, that will actually adjust how that author's content ranks in search in Google. Number 9, various demotions are applied, including anchor mismatch, SERP dissatisfaction, and exact match domains. That makes a lot of sense. So if you link to one website and you write something over the link and that doesn't make sense, Google is going to take that into account. That's called your anchor text, the anchor text of the link, what is in front of the actual link. SERP dissatisfaction, search engine results page dissatisfaction, and exact match domains all make sense. Number 10, links remain important, with metrics like source type indicating the value of links based on where a page is indexed. Number 11, Google measures the originality of short content and counts tokens, reinforcing the importance of placing key content early. I love this one because I have a policy with the articles on my site. Some are quite short and most of them are not SEO optimized, but I believe in a few things. I believe that I'm a good writer, so that's going to improve my reputation as a writer, and Google will see that my posts have pretty high retention and low bounce rate. And so that will make all of my stuff do better in the future. And lots of SEOs would say not to post short content. I think that's nonsense. And Google measures the originality of short content. So I think if short content is original and it's good, it should be posted. And that was something that I always believed. And to me, this kind of validates that. Number 12, the author speculates. So this is the person who came up with these 13 things. The author speculates whether the helpful content update relates to baby panda and what neural semantic retrieval might mean. Interesting. The helpful content update really effed a lot of SEOs. That's what I've been talking about, what so many other SEOs have been talking about, where pieces of content that used to rank on websites, well, now Reddit and Quora are ranking for those keywords where Redditors and Quora people are just stealing the content from websites and reposting to Reddit, and that is ranking above the original content. That's what the helpful content update did. Not just theft, but lots of different things, but user-generated content has become so important. The leak validates many SEO beliefs. It clarifies Google's ranking mechanisms, importance of quality content, user engagement, strategic link building, and more. Okay, everyone knew that. Oh my gosh, there's so much to look into right now. Now I want to see, I wanted to read this article. This article is called "An Anonymous Source Shared Thousands of Leaked Google Search API Documents with Me. Everyone in SEO should see them." That's by Rand Fishkin. I want to read that, but I want to see what Charles Floate is saying. Charles Floate posts a lot of gray hat, black hat stuff on Twitter X. He is a great follow in the world of SEO. Oh man, he is going to town. Quotes directly from Google engineers that the recent Google leaks completely contradict. Customer reviews not a signal for web search, and they are. We don't really have overall domain authority, and they do. There is no sandbox, and they have one. Using clicks directly in ranking would be a mistake. Well, they use them. If you weren't buying links, don't disavow, but you should. No ranking factor compensates missing relevance or missing user interest, but there are several. User engagement is not a search ranking factor. It is. I think people overestimate the importance of links. I don't agree it's in the top 3. It hasn't been for some time. Oh man. Keywords in a TLD do not give any advantage or disadvantage in search. Oh, this is so wild. I'm going to read this article now because I'm so curious what's in it. This is a bit of a long article, so I might stop if it's boring. I haven't read it myself. We're going to find out. So this is again by Rand Fishkin, who isn't as active in SEO as he used to be, but he still is a leading figure in the industry. So he goes, "On Sunday, May 5th, I received an email from a person claiming to have access to a massive leak of API documentation from inside Google's search division. The email further claimed that these leaked documents were confirmed as authentic by ex-Google employees and that those ex-employees and others had shared additional private information about Google search operations. Many of their claims directly contradict public statements made by Googlers over the years, in particular the company's repeated denial that click-centric user signals are employed, denial that subdomains are considered separate in rankings, denials that a domain's age is collected or considered, and more. Naturally, I was skeptical. The claims made by this source, who asked to remain anonymous, seemed extraordinary claims like, in the early years, Google's search team recognized the need for full clickstream data, every URL visited by a browser, for a large percent of web users to improve their search engine's results quality." This is so crazy. A system called NavBoost, cited by VP of Search Pandu Nayak in his Department of Justice case testimony, initially gathered data from Google's toolbar PageRank, and desire for more clickstream data served as the key motivation for creation of the Chrome browser, launched in 2008. Oh my gosh. I want to read this again. Desire for more clickstream data served as the key motivation for the creation of Chrome, of Google Chrome, of the browser Chrome. NavBoost uses the number of searches for a given keyword to identify trending search demand, the number of clicks on a search result. I ran several experiments on this from 2013, 2015, and long clicks versus short clicks, which I presented theories about in this 2015 video. I remember that. Rand Fishkin was always doing experiments with Google, and so he found all of these things and Google would deny them, and here they are. Google utilizes cookie history, logged in Chrome data, and pattern detection, referred to in the leak as unsquashed clicks versus squashed clicks, as effective means for fighting manual and automated click spam. This is wild. NavBoost also scores queries for user intent. For example, certain thresholds of attention and clicks on videos or images will trigger video or image features for that query and related NavBoost associated queries. So NavBoost is measuring search intent. Google examines clicks and engagement on searches both during and after the main query. For instance, if many users search for Rand Fishkin, don't find SparkToro, which is his company, and immediately change their query to SparkToro and click SparkToro.com into the search result, SparkToro.com will receive a boost in the search results for the Rand Fishkin keyword. That makes a lot of sense. NavBoost data is used at the host level for evaluating a site's overall quality. This evaluation can result in a boost or a demotion. Other minor factors, such as penalties for domain names that exactly match unbranded search queries, mensluxurywatches.com or milwaukeehomesforsale.net, a newer baby panda score, and spam signals are also considered during the quality evaluation process. That makes sense. Putting the exact keyword in the URL actually is bad because sites that do that typically are spammy. And so they just blanket, so wild that they did that. They just blanket demote those sites until they prove themselves. But it's a minor factor, it says here. But it is a penalty. NavBoost geofences click data, taking into account country and state province levels, as well as mobile versus desktop usage. However, if Google lacks data for certain regions or user agents, they may apply the process universally to the query results. And then there's information about Google showing politically driven stuff and that being reflected in the algorithm. If you want to read it, you can go to sparktoro.com/blog and it will probably be there. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And while some of these overlap with information revealed during the Google Department of Justice case, many are novel and suggest insider knowledge. So this past Friday, May 24th, following several emails, I had a video call with the anonymous source. Prior to the email and call, I had neither met nor heard of the person who emailed me about this leak. They asked that their identity remain veiled and that I merely include the quote below. An eagle uses the storm to reach unimaginable heights. After the call, I was able to confirm details of their work history, mutual people we both know from the marketing world, and several of their claims about being at particular events with industry insiders, including Googlers, though I cannot confirm details of the meetings nor the content of discussions they claim to have had. During our call, this contact showed me the leak itself, more than 2,500 pages of API documentation containing 14,014 attributes, API features that appear to come from Google's internal content API warehouse. Based on the document's commit history, this code was uploaded to GitHub on March 27, 2024, and not removed until May 7, 2024. This documentation doesn't show things like the weight of particular elements in the search ranking algorithm, nor does it prove which elements are used in ranking systems. But it does show incredible details about data Google collects. After walking me through a handful of these API modules, the source explained their motivations around transparency, holding Google to account, etc., and their hope that I would publish an article sharing this leak, revealing some of the many interesting pieces of data it contained and refuting some lies Googler had been spreading for years. Is this API leak authentic? Can we trust it? A critical next step in the process was verifying the authenticity of the API content warehouse documents. So I reached out to some ex-Googler friends, shared the leaked docs, and asked their thoughts. 3 ex-Googlers wrote back. One said they didn't feel comfortable looking at or commenting on it. The other 2 shared the following off-record and anonymously. I didn't have access to this code when I worked there, but this certainly looks legit. It has all the hallmarks of an internal Google API. It's a Java-based API, and someone spent a lot of time adhering to Google's own internal standards for documenting and naming. I'd need more time to be sure, but this matches internal documentation that I am familiar with. Nothing I saw in a brief review suggests this is anything but legit. Next, I needed help analyzing and deciphering the naming conventions and more technical aspects of the documentation. I've worked with APIs a bit, but it's been 20 years since I wrote code and 6 years since I practiced SEO professionally. So I reached out to one of the world's foremost technical SEOs, Mike King, founder of iPullRank. During a 40-minute phone call on Friday afternoon, Mike reviewed the leak and confirmed my suspicions. This appears to be a legitimate set of documents from inside Google's search division and contains an extraordinary amount of previously unconfirmed information about Google's inner workings. 2,500 technical documents is an unreasonable amount of material to ask one man, a dad, husband, and entrepreneur no less, to review in a single weekend. But that didn't stop Mike from doing his best. He's put together an exceptionally detailed initial review of the Google API leak here, which I'll reference more in the findings below. And he's also agreed to join us at Spark Together 2024 in Seattle, Washington on October 8th, where he'll present the fully transparent story of this leak in far greater detail and with the benefit of the next few months of analysis. Qualifications and motivations for this post. I'm actually curious about this because Rand Fishkin is a friend of Google, as far as I believed, and so I am very surprised to see him putting up this post. Before we go further, a few disclaimers. I no longer work in the SEO field. My knowledge of and experience with SEO is 6+ years out of date. I don't have the technical expertise or knowledge of Google's internal operations to analyze an API documentation leak and confirm with certainty whether it's authentic, hence getting Mike's help and the input of ex-Googlers. So why publish on this topic? Because when I spoke to the party that sent me this information, I found them credible, thoughtful, and deeply knowledgeable. Despite going into the conversation deeply skeptical, I could identify no red flags nor any malicious motivation. This person's sole aim appeared quite aligned with my own, to hold Google accountable for public statements that conflict with private conversations and leaked documentation, and to bring greater transparency to the field of search marketing. And they believe that despite my years removed from SEO, I was the best person to share this publicly. These are goals I cared about deeply for almost 2 decades. And while my professional life has moved on, I now run 2 companies, SparkToro, which makes audience research software, and Snack Bar Studio, an indie video game developer. My interests and connections to the world of search engine optimization remain strong. I feel a deep obligation to share information about how the world's dominant search engine works, especially information Google would prefer to keep quiet. And sadly, I'm not sure where else to send something this potentially groundbreaking. Years ago, before he left journalism to become Google's search liaison, Danny Sullivan would have been my go-to source for a leak of this magnitude. He had the gravitas, resume, knowledge, and experience to examine a claim like this and present it fairly in the court of public opinion. There have been so many times in the last few years I've wished for Danny's calm, even-handed, tough but fair on Google's approach to newsworthy pieces like this, pieces that could reach as far as the company's statements on the witness stand. For example, his eloquent writing on Google's indefensible privacy claims about organic keyword data. Whatever Google's paying him, it isn't nearly enough. Apologies that instead of Danny, dear reader, you're stuck with me. But since you are, I'm going to assume you may not be familiar with my background or credentials, and I'll briefly share those. I started doing SEO for small businesses in the Seattle area in 2001 and co-founded the SEO consultancy that would become Moz, originally called SEO Moz, in 2003. For the next 15 years, I worked in the search marketing industry and was often recognized as an influential leader in that field. I authored, co-authored Lost and Founder, a painfully honest field guide to the startup world, The Art of SEO, and Inbound Marketing and SEO. Publications including the Wall Street Journal, Inc., Forbes, and hundreds more have written about and quoted me on the world of SEO and Google search, many of them citing a popular weekly video series I hosted for a decade called Whiteboard Friday. Whiteboard Friday was amazing. I watch it every Friday. I miss Whiteboard Fridays so much. Moz grew to 35,000 plus paying customers of its SEO software. I was one of them. Revenues of 50 million plus and a team of 200 before being sold to a private equity buyer in 2021. I left in 2018 and started SparkToro, and in 2023, Snack Bar Studio. I dropped out of college at the University of Washington in 2001 and do not hold a degree, yet my work on Google and SEO has been cited by the United States Congress, the US FTC, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and John Oliver's Last Week Tonight, among dozens of others. I hold several patents around the design of a web-scale link index and am the creator of numerous link index metrics, including domain authority, a machine learning-based score commonly used in the digital marketing world to assess a website's capability to rank in Google's search engine. Domain authority, I talk about that on like most of my episodes, honestly, and in so many of my videos. I use it. If I'm looking at it right now, it's an extension on Google Chrome. All right, so back to the Google leak. What is the Google API Content Warehouse? When looking through the massive trove of API documentation, the first reasonable set of questions might be, what is this? What is this used for? Why does it exist in the first place? The leak appears to come from GitHub, and the most credible explanation for its exposure matches what my anonymous source told me on our call. These documents were inadvertently and briefly made public. Many links in the documentation point to the private GitHub repositories and internal pages on Google's corporate site that require specific Google credentialed logins. During this probably accidental public periods between March and May 2024, the API documentation was spread to HexDocs, which indexes public GitHub repos, and found/circulated by other sources. I'm certain that others have a copy, though it's odd that I could find no public discourse until now. So it was probably accidental public periods. The API documentation was spread to public GitHub repos and then found and circulated by other sources. According to my ex-Googler sources, documentation like this exists on almost every Google team, explaining various API attributes and modules to help familiarize those working on a project with the data elements available. This leak matches others in public GitHub repositories and on Google's Cloud API documentation using the same notation style, formatting, and even process/module/feature names and references. If that all sounds like a technical mouthful, think of this as instructions for members of Google's search engine team. It's like an inventory of books in a library, a card catalog of sorts, telling those employees who need to know what's available and how they can get it. But whereas libraries are public, Google Search is one of the most secretive, closely guarded black boxes in the world. In the last quarter century, no leak of this magnitude or detail has ever been reported from Google's search division. How certain can we be that Google's search engine uses everything detailed in these API docs? That's open to interpretation. Google could have retired some of these, used others exclusively for testing or internal projects, or may even have made API features available that were never employed. However, there are references in the documentation to depreciated features and specific notes on others indicating that they should no longer be used. That strongly suggests those not marked with such details were still active as of the March 2024 leak. A reasonable reader would conclude that the documentation was up to date as of last summer, and possibly even up to date as of the March 2024 date of disclosure. Google Search obviously changes massively from year to year, and recent introductions like their much maligned AI overviews do not make an appearance in this leak. Which of the items mentioned are actively used today in Google's ranking systems? That's open to speculation. This trove contains fascinating references, many that will be entirely new to non-Google search engineers. But I would urge readers not to point to a particular API feature in this leak and say, see, that's proof Google uses XYZ in their rankings. It's not quite proof, it's a strong indication, stronger than patent applications or public statements from Googlers, but still no guarantee. That said, it's as close to a smoking gun as anything since Google's executives testified in the Department of Justice trial last year. And speaking of that testimony, much of it is corroborated and expanded on the document leak, as Mike details in his post. Okay, so a lot of this gets more technical, and it's hard to kind of read that on the podcast. So I'm going to read this myself now as we go on, and I'm going to keep recording. And if there is anything that I find to be surprising, I'm going to pick up this mic and I'm going to record it. And you are not going to notice any gaps in between words because my software on Descript will just cut it out. Pop, pop, just cut it out. Just cut it out right there. And so if there's anything interesting as I read, you will hear it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, found one. Google has historically attacked Rand Fishkin's work. I didn't even know that. He said, I won't bother showing side-by-sides of what Googlers said versus what this document insinuates, but it's a lot. And now he's going to focus on the interesting or useful takeaways and his conclusions from the whole of the modules he's been able to review. Okay, I'm going to go back to reading silently. Google heavily relies on click data. Rand writes, plenty has already been written about Google's use of click data, so I won't belabor the point. What matters is that Google has named and described features for that measurement, adding even more evidence to the pile. So for example, they measure the length of clicks, pogo sticking when a searcher clicks a result and then quickly clicks the back button unsatisfied by the answer they found, and the impressions. Google has many ways to filter out clicks that they don't want to count in their ranking systems and include ones that they do. It's not very surprising to anybody who's been doing SEO for a while. This use of Chrome browser click streams to power Google search. Now this one is crazy. I'm going to just read this right now. My anonymous source claimed that way back in 2005, Google wanted the full clickstream of billions of internet users, and with Chrome, they've now got it. The API document suggests Google calculates several types of metrics that can be called using Chrome views related to both individual pages and entire domains. This document describing the features around how Google creates site links is particularly interesting. It showcases a call named top URL, which is a list of top URLs with the highest two-level scores. For example, Chrome trans clicks, my read is that Google likely uses the number of clicks on pages in Chrome browsers and uses that to determine the most popular / important URLs on a site, which go into the calculation of which to include in the site link feature. Oh, that's so interesting. So site links, when you like search for just a root domain or a brand name, and then you see the homepage in Google search, you see under that site links, it's going to be popular pages on the site, pricing, blog, login, whatever. And Google knows to show those because of what the Chrome data is telling them. Crazy, 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 crazy. Google knows this through their tracking of billions of Chrome users' click streams. All right, section 3 of this is the section that I can't talk about. I explained why I'm not going to talk about that, but if you want to see it, you can just go to sparktoro.com/blog and read it. I'm going to read this for myself. Actually, I can read this one sentence, and it says, Google is whitelisting particular domains that are appropriate to show for highly controversial or potentially problematic queries. All right, this one is interesting. Google uses click data to determine how to weight links in rankings. If Forbes.com/cats has no clicks, it goes into the low quality index and the link is ignored. If Forbes.com/dogs has a high volume of clicks from verifiable devices, for example, all the Chrome related data discussed previously, then it goes into the high quality index and the link passes ranking signals. Oh, wow. Once the link becomes trusted because it belongs to a higher tier index, it can flow PageRank and anchors or be filtered / demoted by link spam systems. Links from the low quality link index will not hurt a site's ranking. They are just ignored. So that's super, super fascinating there. Oh, great. Okay, so now there is a section called Big Picture Takeaways for Marketers Who Care About Organic Search Traffic. And I think this is going to be interesting to everybody who listens to this podcast, and I am very fascinated on what Rand is going to say here. So he says, big picture takeaways. If you care strategically about the value of organic search traffic, but don't have much use for the technical details of how Google works, this section is for you. It's my attempt to sum up much of Google's evolution from the period this leak covers, 2005 to 2023, and I won't limit myself exclusively to confirmed elements of this leak. Number 1, brand matters more than anything else. Hey, I say that a lot on this podcast. Google has numerous ways to identify entities, sort, rank, filter, and employ them. Entities include brands, brand names, their official websites associated with social accounts. If there was one universal piece of advice I had for marketers seeking to broadly improve their organic search rankings and traffic, it would be build a notable, popular, well-recognized brand in your space outside of Google search, which is why I talk about lots of other marketing channels on the show. Number 2, experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, known as EAT, might not matter as directly as some SEOs think. I knew this. I had experienced this myself. But so Rand says, the only mention of topical expertise in the leak we've found so far is a brief notation about Google Maps review contributions. The other aspects of EAT are either buried, indirect, labeled in hard to identify ways, or more likely, in my opinion, correlated with things Google uses and cares about, but not specific elements of the ranking system. As Mike noted in his article, there is documentation in the leak suggesting Google can identify authors and treats them as entities in the system. Building up one's influence as an author online may indeed lead to ranking benefits in Google, but what exactly in the ranking systems make up EAT and how powerful those elements are is an open question. I'm a bit worried that EAT is 80% propaganda, 20% substance. There are plenty of powerful brands that rank remarkably well in Google and have had very little experience, expertise, authoritativeness, or trustworthiness, as I've shown in the past. Number 3, content and links are secondary when user intention around navigation and patterns that intent creates are present. Let's say, for example, that many people in the Seattle area search for Lehman Brothers and scroll to page 2, 3, or 4 of the search results until they can find the theater listing for the Lehman Brothers stage production, then click that result. Fairly quickly, Google will learn that's what searchers for those words in that area want. Even if the Wikipedia article about Lehman Brothers' role in the financial crisis of 2008 were to invest heavily in link building and content optimization, it's unlikely they could outrank the user intent signals calculated from queries and clicks of Seattle's theatergoers. Extending this example to the broader web and search as a whole, if you can create demand for your website among enough likely searchers in the regions you're targeting, you may be able to end around the need for classic on and off page SEO signals like links, anchor text, optimized content, and the like. The power of nav boost and the intent of users is likely the most powerful ranking factor in Google systems. As Google VP Alexander put in a 2019 email to other Google execs, including Danny Sullivan and Pandu Naik, he says, "We already know one signal could be more powerful than the whole big system on a given metric. For example, I'm pretty sure that nav boost alone was/is more positive on clicks and likely even on precision/utility metrics by itself than the rest of ranking. By the way, engineers outside of NavBoost team used to be also not happy about the power of NavBoost and the fact that it was stealing with." I just want to say real fast, this is saying that search intent is super important. I talk about bottom of funnel keywords all the time in the show, and that's what my product is about. It's about making keywords that target people whose search intent is to use or purchase something. They have a problem, they are searching for a solution. I'm showing ways to address the problems that they have. And it's so great to see this reflected here. Search intent is so important. That's why low domain authority sites can rank really high if these people are targeting people's problems, brands are targeting people's problems directly with these bottom of funnel keywords. That's why the conversion rate is high and why these pages can also rank very high, because people will go to Google with their problems. And if you address that problem directly, you can find these problems by finding these bottom of funnel keywords, and then you can address the problem directly. Your content will rank very highly and the conversion rate will be insane. So it's great to see that. Number 4, classic ranking factors: page rank, anchors, topical page rank based on the anchor text of the link, and text matching have been waning in importance for years, but page titles are still quite important. Yes, I've seen that actually myself. Page titles are so important. I'm going to be covering that in Compact Keywords in the program that I'm making, but page titles, crazy important. This is a finding from Mike's excellent analysis that I'd be foolish to not call out. Give me a sec, because I gotta get water. I've been reading for a long time. All right, I'm back with water. Feel much better. This is a finding from Mike's excellent analysis that I'd be foolish not to call out here. PageRank still appears to have a place in search, indexing, and rankings, but it's almost certainly evolved from the original 1998 paper. The document leak insinuates multiple versions of PageRank have been created and discarded over the years, and anchor text links, while present in the leak, don't seem to be as crucial or omnipresent as I'd have expected from my earlier years in SEO. Oh my gosh. So Rand goes on. I'll just read it. He says, historically, some of the search industry's loudest voices and most prolific publishers have been happy to uncritically repeat Google's public statements. They write headlines like "Google says XYZ is true" rather than "Google claims XYZ, evidence suggests otherwise." Please do better. If this leak and the Department of Justice trial can create just one change, I hope this is it. When those new to the field read Search Engine Roundtable, Search Engine Land, SE Journal, and the many agency blogs and websites that cover the SEO field's news, they don't necessarily know how seriously to take Google's statements. Journalists and authors should not presume that readers are savvy enough to know that dozens or hundreds of past public comments by Google's official representatives were later proven wrong. This obligation isn't just about helping the search industry, it's about helping the whole world. Google is one of the most powerful, influential forces for the spread of information and commerce on this planet. Only recently have they been held to some account by governments and reporters. The work of journalists and writers in the search marketing field carries weight in the courts of public opinion, in the halls of elected officials, and in the hearts of Google employees, all of whom have the power to change things for the better or ignore them at our collective peril. This post is called "An Anonymous Source Shared Thousands of Leaked Google Search API Documents with Me. Everyone in SEO should see them." It is by Rand Fishkin. Thank you, Rand, for writing that and sharing it. Thank you, everyone who listened all the way to the end. And that is all for episode 328 of The Edward Show. I do this thing every day. This is my daily digital marketing podcast, growth hacking, growth marketing podcast. I do this thing every day. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye now.